Wondrous Creatures is a 1 to 4 player game for ages 14 and up, with an average gameplay length of 45 to 90 minutes, published by Bad Comet. The basic overview of Wondrous Creatures has players placing their crew members on locations to collect resources, creature cards, and eggs. When you have enough resources, you can play up to 2 creatures from your hand into your reserve and complete their actions. The creature cards can have instant, continuous, recharge, endgame, and energy actions. Throughout the game, players will be collecting their crew members, and this will move the time track that will change the environment by adding new eggs to the map. By completing achievements, you will gain bonuses as well as trophies for additional endgame scoring. Once all trophies have been collected, there will be one additional round, except the player who took the last trophy will not participate. The game will end and then move on to final scoring, and the player with the most points wins. To set up the game, first determine the number of players. If 1 to 2 players, play on side A, and if 3 to 4 players, play on side B of the main board. You can tell which side is which by looking at this compass here. If playing with 4 players, place this 4-player time track on top of the one on the main board. Next, place the supply board above or near the main board. Then shuffle the creature deck and draw 6 cards and place one on each location here on the wilderness and the deck in this deck location. Place 5 eggs of each species type into the bag. You will have red crustaceans, orange mammals, yellow birds, green reptiles, blue fish, purple insects, and black dragons. Then place all remaining eggs in this location on the supply board. Also, place the energy tokens and butterfly nets here. Now move on to the main board. Collect the habitat tiles with the telescopes on the back. Shuffle them and place them in a stack face down, and draw 3 and place them face up in these open spaces. Now take the 5 egg time tokens, shuffle them face down, and reveal 2 of them. The symbols on these tokens will let you know where to place eggs from the bag. Randomly draw an egg from the bag and place one face up on each location that matches the symbol. Once all eggs are placed, shuffle the 2 tokens face down and place both on the furthest 2 right locations on the time track with the yellow border. Shuffle and replace remaining tokens on locations with the yellow border. Please note, in a 3-player game like this one, you will only use 4 tokens, so return the unused one to the box. In a 4-player game, all 5 tokens will be used. Also, in a 4-player game, you will place 1 habitat tile on this icon, and then draw 2 eggs and place 1 egg on each of these icons. Next, we will place the time tracker at the leftmost location on the time track. Moving further down the board, you will place trophies on these locations. In a 2-player game, you will place 10 trophies. In a 3-player game, 14 trophies. And in a 4-player game, 16 trophies. Now you will place the achievements for the game. You will have 3 main achievements with the brown border. If this is your first game, it is recommended to use the 3 marked with a tiny 1, 2, and 3. Be sure to have them 3 to 4 player side up if playing with that many players, and 1 to 2 player side up when playing with that many players. Then shuffle and draw 2 single species achievements with the turquoise border, and 2 multi-species achievements with the yellow border. With all that, the main board setup is complete, and you will move on to the player setup. Each player will select a color and collect matching board, 6 achievement markers, which will be placed on the left side of the player board in each of these locations, 4 resource tokens, all to be placed on the 1 of each resource type here on the right, 1 lock token, and 1 score token. The score token will be placed on the main board here. You will then choose a set of 3 matching crew members in your color. Then take the captain boards, shuffle, and deal 2 to each player. Each player will choose one and place it face up in this section of the player board, placing the lock token on top of the ability and returning the unselected captain back to the box. Players will find their matching captain meeple and place it atop the crew member with a magnet on its back. Each player will then draw 8 creature cards, keeping 4 and discarding the rest face up in the discard pile. All players will collect a net. One thing to keep in mind, you can only have a maximum of 3 butterfly nets. If you would collect a 4th, instead of collecting, you will gain 1 victory point instead. And then based on player order, you may gain extra resources. The first player is decided by the person who has befriended the most unusual animal, and they will start with 1 resource for each type. The second player will be allowed to move up any 1 resource to the number 2 location. The third player can move any 2 resources up to the number 2 location. And if playing with 4 players, the 4th player will be able to move any 3 resources up to the number 2 location. And with that, the player setup is complete. On each player's turn, they will take a single action. They can place a crew member, play up to 2 creature cards, complete an achievement, or recharge. And any number of free actions can be taken, which are to use a butterfly net and or spend energy. Now let's play a few turns and see how the game plays. The first player will begin. They will place a crew member on the main board. When placing a crew member, any crew member can be used, even the one with the captain on it. Unless otherwise specified, the captain counts as a regular crew member. When placing a crew member, they will take up 2 hexes. Crew members can only be placed on the plains hexes for free, and for the cost of a single resource, they can be placed on mountain locations. But they can never be placed on lake or habitat spaces. The player will then look at the habitats touching their crewmate and collect either the resource or a card from the wilderness that matches that resource. The habitats and resources are the green fruit, the blue coral, the yellow flower, and the purple mushroom. For example, this player will collect these resources, and they will collect this creature card and add it to their hand since the resource matches the habitat of the card collected. Each hex can either gain you a resource or a creature card, and only once. After the player has collected their resources or cards, and has taken any bonus actions if they would like, they will refill the wilderness and then pass to the next player. The second player will also place a crew member. When placing, they cannot overlap a crew member that is already on the board, but you can place the crew member on an egg. Doing this allows you to collect it and place it on your player board, unhatched side up, here, and gain the bonus it covers up. These range from points, drawing a card from the wilderness, and gaining any 1 resource. In this example, it will be 1 point. They will move their compass point tracker up 1 on the point track. Before completing their action, they will also take the free action of using their butterfly net. Butterfly nets can be used on a space adjacent to either collect an egg or use an adjacent location's special effect, which can be seen here. This icon lets the player discard all wilderness cards and draw 6 new wilderness cards, then select one by putting it in their hand. They will then continue their turn by collecting resources from the adjacent locations, and they will refill the wilderness at the end of their turn and pass to the next player. The third player chooses the Play Cards action. First, let's look at a creature card to understand their layout. All creature cards will have 1 or 2 species types here in the top left. Those species types can be the red crustaceans, orange mammals, yellow birds, green reptiles, blue fish, purple butterflies, and or black dragon. In the top right, you have the habitat where the creature can be found. These habitats match up with resources. You have the green fruit, blue coral, yellow flower, and purple mushroom. Moving down on the left side of the card, you have the cost of resources needed to play the card into your reserve. The bottom half of the card has most of the details. On all the cards, there is a number and a red stamp on the right, which is end of game point value of the card. On the left side of the card is the card type, which will indicate when the text or action below will be performed. There are 5 card types: instant, continuous, recharge, energy, and end game. Instant cards are identified by the lightning bolt with the brown background. When played, you will receive the bonus listed immediately and only once. Continuous cards, identified by the infinity loop with the blue background, will only activate when the text occurs. For example, Lunantula lets you gain 1 victory point each time you flip an egg or eggs. 1 point per action, not per number of eggs. Next, we have the recharge cards, identified by the hourglass with the yellow background. These activate whenever the recharge action is taken by the player whose reserve the card is in. Endgame scoring cards are identified by the bell with the red background and give you additional points for whatever is listed on the card at the end of the game. And finally, we have the energy cards, identified with this star and the purple background. These play a little different. Once played, you will place a number of energy tokens on the card equal to the number of symbols here on the right. And as a free action, you can remove one of these energy tokens to activate this card's ability. If you no longer have any energy tokens on the card, it can no longer be activated. Now back to the player. They can play up to 2 cards from their hand, provided they have the resources. First, they will play Draw 8, which is an instant card, by paying the 2 fruit resources required. This card allows them to draw 3 cards from the wilderness deck, and then discard 1 card from their hand. Then they will play Gluminor by paying 2 mushrooms and 1 coral. This is an instant card that allows them to draw the top card from the wilderness deck and gain victory points for the number of cards in their hand. Whenever you see a brown stamp with a number, those victory points are awarded immediately. However, if you see the red stamp with a number, those points are scored at the end of the game. And when scoring, they pass this blue marker. When scoring points, you will land on or pass a special location, which will offer a bonus, such as a trophy, a butterfly net, or even this discovery reward. When landing on or passing one of these, you will gain either the trophy or the butterfly net, but with the discovery reward, you will draw one of the 3 discovery tokens placed in the top left of the board and place it on any water space to create a new resource location. If you would be placing it on top of a location with an egg, you will discard the egg. And now back to the player. After playing their 2 cards, they will pass to the next player. After the first round, we have gone over place crew member actions, the play card actions, and the butterfly net free action. Let's skip ahead a bit to go over the last couple of actions. Here we see this player has enough of the species in their reserve to complete this achievement. They could wait until they have more to gain even more endgame points, but depending upon how far along the other players are, they may not be able to claim it later. When scoring for an achievement, you can always hatch any unhatched eggs on your player board that match the species you are turning in for the achievement and add them to the quantity needed. As an action, this player will take one of their ink and quill tokens on the side of their board and place it on the achievement box next to the achievement they have completed. Now, in choosing which quill to take off of your player board, you will see different bonuses on the side and choose which you would like to take. These are one-time bonuses that can only be collected once. This player decides to use the collect 2 cards from the wilderness option. After placing the quill, they will collect 2 of the face-up cards in the wilderness and add them to their hand. They will also collect one of the trophies from the board for completing an achievement, which brings the game closer to an end. Not only that, they also can now remove the lock token from their captain's ability, and from this point on, anytime they meet the requirements of their captain, they can take their captain's action. After completing their collect achievement action, they will pass to the next player. This player has placed all their crew members on the board and wishes to recall them. Crew members cannot be moved once placed on the board, and once all three have been placed, the recharge action becomes available. This action allows you to collect all three of your crew members and place them back in front of you. They can also activate any and all recharge cards in your reserve. This action also makes the time track advance. For every recharge action taken, the time track will advance and the player will complete the action listed. Usually it involves getting a butterfly net and or sweeping the wilderness of all cards and replenishing them with new cards from the wilderness deck. You may also land on an egg time token which will be flipped, and you will then place random eggs from the bag on the symbol listed. If the space is occupied by a player, another egg, or a discovery token, do not place an egg on that location. At the end of the time track, there is a continuous location for which every time a player recharges, you will activate the final space, which removes a trophy from the game. The final round happens when the last trophy has been either taken or removed from the game. Now back to the player. Having taken their recharge action, they have collected their crew members, advanced on the time track, activated all recharge cards, and now must discard down to 5 cards or less. There is no hand limit during the game. However, whenever the recharge action is taken, that player must discard down to 5 or less cards. With their turn complete, the player will then pass. The next player will place their captain crew member. Since this player has already removed their lock on their captain's ability, they can use this ability. This captain's ability activates when the captain token is placed, and it allows for this player to activate one of their recharge cards' abilities. Using a captain's ability does not cost an action. As a free action, they will use one of their energy tokens off of one of their cards in their reserve. They will discard the energy token and take that card's action. Once taken, you can no longer activate this card on this turn. However, if you have other cards with energy tokens on them, you can activate those cards by discarding an energy. Basically, each card can only be activated once per turn, but multiple cards can be activated per turn. After the player has finished their turn, they will then pass to the next player. The game will continue like this, with each player taking a single action and any number of bonus actions until all trophies have either been claimed or discarded. The player who collects or discards the final trophy will trigger the final round. All other players will take one additional turn until you make it back to the player who depleted the trophies, and the game will end without that player taking a turn. Players will then move on to final scoring. Keep these 50 to 100 point tokens handy for if and when a player exceeds those milestones. Start by scoring all endgame cards in your reserve with the bell and red background. This will usually be a point per creature or habitat type in your reserve, including any eggs hatched or unhatched. Then you will score every card in your reserve. This refers to every red stamp on the cards you have played throughout the game. Next, score any achievements you've completed. And then, for every trophy you have, you will gain 3 victory points. Also, if you have any leftover resources and or butterfly nets, you will score 1 point for every 4 of these resources. Once all players have scored, the player with the most points wins. If tied, the player with the most trophies wins. And if still tied, the player with the most leftover resources wins. And that is how you play Wondrous Creatures. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notified about new videos. If you're bored now, click this for more games.